Good morning, everyone. Today we'll explore the DPP versus Borce Ristevski case, a tragic domestic homicide that shook Victoria. This case, involving the death of Karen Ristevski, raises critical questions about justice, sentencing, and the societal impact of intimate partner violence. Let's begin. The Ristevski case revolves around Borce Ristevski, who killed his wife Karen in 2016. The Director of Public Prosecutions, or DPP, represented by Brendan Kisayan QC, pursued justice, initially charging Borce with murder. The case unfolded in the Supreme Court under Justice Christopher Beale for sentencing, and later reached the Court of Appeal, presided over by Chief Justice Anne Ferguson and Justices Simon Whelan and Philip Priest. Borce eventually pleaded guilty to manslaughter after the murder charge was dropped due to insufficient evidence. This timeline from the offence on June 29, 2016 to the appeal judgment on December 6, 2019 maps the case's progression. Borce and Karen Ristevski were married for 27 years and lived in Avondale Heights, Melbourne, with their daughter Sarah, who was aged 21 at the time. They co-owned a clothing boutique, but financial difficulties strained their relationship, though no prior domestic violence was documented, making this case atypical for the courts. On June 29, 2016, Borce killed Karen in their home between the hours of 8:58 a.m. and 10:43 a.m. The cause of death remains unknown because Borce has never disclosed the details. He then hid her body in the Macedon Ranges, where it lay undiscovered until February 2017, at which time it was too decomposed for proper forensic analysis. Borce's actions after the killing were chilling. He embarked on a sustained campaign of deception, telling Sarah and others that Karen had left angrily after an argument. He lied to police, media, and even comforted grieving relatives at Karen's funeral, where he served as a pallbearer, all while knowing he was responsible for her death. In December 2017, he claimed that police had planted evidence against him. These lies not only delayed the police investigation, but also inflicted profound emotional distress on Karen's family and friends, compounding their grief. Initially charged with murder, Borce was offered a manslaughter plea in September 2018, which was rejected. By March 2019, Justice Beale ruled that the prosecution's reliance on post-offence conduct couldn't prove murderous intent, leading to the murder charges withdrawal. Borce then pled guilty to manslaughter. At the plea hearing, the prosecution argued the case's severity due to its domestic violence context and Borce's callousness, whilst the defence emphasised his lack of prior convictions and the plea's benefit in sparing a trial. Karen's family, including her cousin, Nevada Knight, delivered heart-wrenching victim impact statements, describing the betrayal that they felt. On April 18, 2019, Justice Beale sentenced Borce to 9 years imprisonment with a 6-year non-parole period. He acknowledged the domestic violence context, but noted the lack of details about the violence prevented classifying it as an upper-range manslaughter. A significant discount was given for the guilty plea, which avoided a trial, though Borce's silence limited claims of remorse. His deceit was a major aggravating factor. The public reaction was one of outrage. Karen's brother, Stephen Williams, said, "We didn't get justice," and over 70,000 people signed a petition urging the DPP to appeal, reflecting widespread dissatisfaction. In May 2019, the DPP, led by Kerry Judd QC, appealed, arguing the 9-year sentence was manifestly inadequate, given the domestic violence context and Borce's deceit. At the November 2019 appeal hearing, the prosecution stressed Borce's lack of remorse, noting he showed not one scintilla of regret. The defence, led by David Hallows SC, argued the sentence was appropriate, citing Borce's clean record and Sarah's support. On December 6, the majority, led by Chief Justice Ferguson, increased the sentence to 13 years with a 10-year non-parole period. Justice Priest dissented, proposing 12 years. The case of the DPP versus Ristevski raised critical legal issues in Victorian criminal law, particularly in manslaughter sentencing and domestic violence homicides. The first key issue was sentencing for manslaughter in a domestic violence context. Justice Beale sentenced Borce Ristevski to 9 years for killing his wife Karen, noting the breach of trust inherent in intimate partner violence. The Court of Appeal increased this to 13 years, emphasising general deterrence and denunciation, setting a precedent for robust penalties in such cases. Another significant issue was the treatment of post-offence conduct. Ristevski's concealment of Karen's body and deception to police were deemed aggravating factors, though not evidence of murderous intent. This clarified the role of post-offence conduct in escalating sentences without inferring a higher culpability. The burden of proving intent was also central. The prosecution withdrew the murder charge due to insufficient evidence of intent, given the unknown cause of death, leading to a manslaughter conviction. This highlighted the challenges of circumstantial evidence in homicide cases. Finally, the appellate review of sentencing emerged as a key issue. The Court of Appeal's intervention to correct a manifestly inadequate sentence reinforced the judiciary's role in ensuring sentences reflect the offence's gravity, especially in domestic violence matters. These issues have influenced manslaughter jurisprudence, shaping sentencing practices and reinforcing the seriousness of family violence homicides in Victoria. This case has profoundly impacted Victorian criminal law, sentencing practice, and societal attitudes toward domestic violence. The Court of Appeal's decision to increase Borce's manslaughter sentence from 9 to 13 years for killing his wife underscored the judiciary's commitment to robust penalties in domestic violence homicides. This has influenced sentencing frameworks, prioritising general deterrence and denunciation, particularly in cases involving intimate partner violence, even without prior documented abuse. The case clarified the treatment of post-offence conduct, ruling Ristevski's concealment of Karen's body and deception as aggravating factors, though not of evidence of murderous intent. This precedent ensures harsher sentences for offenders who engage in deceptive acts, shaping manslaughter sentencing guidelines across Victoria. Additionally, the case highlighted the prosecution's burden to prove intent in circumstantial homicides, impacting plea negotiations and trial strategies where intent is ambiguous. Beyond the courtroom, the case sparked significant public and advocacy responses. Over 70,000 people signed a petition for the DPP's appeal, reflecting community demand for justice in domestic violence cases. Advocacy groups like Domestic Violence Victoria leveraged the case to push for sentencing reforms, contributing to policy discussions on family violence laws. Its use in legal education and media, including comparisons to shows like The Cry, has raised awareness of domestic violence's complexities, fostering a cultural shift towards recognising its severity. By setting legal precedents and amplifying public discourse, DPP versus Ristevski has strengthened protections for victims and influenced both judicial and societal approaches to addressing family violence in Australia. This case underscores significant challenges. Evidentiary gaps caused by the body's decomposition and Borce's silence prevented a murder conviction, exposing limits in prosecuting such cases. Public perception of leniency in domestic homicide sentencing, compared to harsher penalties for stranger violence, fueled demands for reform. The atypical framing may downplay inherent power dynamics in relationships. Most critically, Borce's silence left Karen's family without answers, highlighting a gap in the justice system's ability to provide truth alongside punishment. The DPP versus Ristevski is cited in over 30 cases, including in manslaughter cases, for its authoritative guidance on sentencing in domestic violence homicides, emphasising deterrence and denunciation. Courts reference its treatment of post-offence conduct like body concealment as an aggravating factor. The case's clarification of the prosecution's burden to prove intent in circumstantial homicides aids in distinguishing murder from manslaughter. Additionally, its appellate correction of a lenient sentence is cited to justify sentence reviews shaping Victorian sentencing practices. In conclusion, the DPP versus Borce-Ristevski case is a sobering example of the complexities in prosecuting and sentencing domestic homicides. The appeal's increase to a 13-year sentence addressed some concerns about leniency, but didn't fully satisfy calls for justice. This case remains a powerful catalyst for discussions on domestic violence, pushing for legal reforms and greater recognition of victims' rights. It also underscores the need for truth alongside punishment to provide closure for families like Karen's. We take this opportunity to thank you for your attention today.